Hi, everyone. On behalf of the Women's Network, it's such a pleasure to have Subira Jones here today. And she's going to be speaking to us on when life gives you lemons, navigating uncertainty for success and managing wellness. And just a few words about Subira. She's also known as the corporate hippie. And she's an award-winning corporate burnout prevention consultant, LinkedIn top voice for work-life balance, as well as certified life coach, TEDx speaker, and founder of the Fireproof Career. She's a leading authority on burnout, and she collaborates with global brands like Channel 4, Deloitte, the Financial Times, and more to create sustainable high-performance teams. With a powerful personal journey of overcoming burnout and chronic illness, Subira empowers corporate professionals and entrepreneurs with practical strategies to build tenacity, enhance performance, and of course, fireproof their lives and careers from burnout. So without further ado, I invite Subira up.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all feeling?
Good.
Good, good. Yeah? Honest answers? Good? That's great. Me personally, I'm amazing, but feeling about maybe 78% recovered on like the energy level. Been fighting off a cold. I'm winning, but that's my truth. I want to say thank you very much for having me here today. I am obsessed with burnout. It's a rather strange obsession to have, but I'm okay with it because for a long time, burnout was obsessed with me, and I much prefer this new power dynamic, much nicer. But alongside of that, what I'm really passionate about is helping talented professionals achieve sustainable high performance and success in their life, which means the best way to do that is to fireproof your career from burnout. Now, before I go a little bit further, does anyone have an idea or think they know what burnout is or familiar with the term or at least heard about it this year? Hands up. Okay, full room. We'll make that a bit clearer a bit later. But the reason why I wanted to come talk today, other than being invited, and I'm really grateful to be here, is we're living in a world of uncertainty, which is nothing new if we're honest about it. But over the last few years, since the pandemic and since current affairs, things seem to really be up in the air, both on a macro level as well as on an interpersonal level. And the best way to navigate uncertainty is to reframe it and realize that with uncertainty also comes opportunity, which is a lot easier said than actually done. And so whilst I am a keynote speaker, I prefer to call it storytelling. So if you will humor me, I will tell you my own little story so you can have a clearer idea. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so today's talk is called When Life Gives You Lemons. Has anyone heard that saying before?
Yes.
How does it go? Anyone want to volunteer? Make lemonade. That is often what people do when life gives them lemons. But I want to challenge you with something else. Maybe sometimes you don't need lemonade. Maybe sometimes when life gives you lemons, it's a rotten lemon and actually it's not worth the squeeze. And that's what I want to focus on today. Not every lemon is actually worth the squeeze. So, Deborah did an incredible job of introducing me, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. Yay! Let's get into it. So most of you said that you understood what burnout was. And the fun part about my job is I get to speak to people across different industries because burnout doesn't discriminate. But there's a huge misconception about burnout that tends to arise. And it's this. There's a difference between being run down and being burnt out. Does that surprise anyone? A mixed response. Okay. So just to make sure we're all on the same page before we go ahead, imagine using your laptop all day. Hard to imagine, right? But you've been using your laptop all day and eventually the battery dies. It's not a problem. You put it onto charge, and in no time at all, you can continue using it, right? That's what it's like to be run down. We are incredible humans, but still humans. And after working during intense periods, seasons, or an intense project, we need to rest, recharge, and reset so we can recover from being run down. However, what happens when the laptop dies and no matter how long you leave it on charge, it won't turn back on? Or if it does, it overheats, it cuts out, or the fan in the motor runs really loudly, as we know, and it can no longer perform at its optimum. That's what it means to be burnt out. There's a difference between the two. Run down, rest, recharge, recover, because it's acute stress. Burnout, on the other hand, is the result of being chronically exposed to stress over a long period of time. That was redundant. I said chronically, but we're on the same page now, right? Thank you. So I like to make sure that distinction is clear, because oftentimes we think, well, surely I just can go on holiday or go to that yoga class or, maybe have a better diet and that will help me prevent burnout. But it's not the case, because stress itself is like fire. It can be productive and constructive when it's well managed and well utilized. And I'm sure many of us in this room have utilized stress and pressure really well at work to excel, to get those projects across the line and make the seemingly impossible attainable, right? But stress, just like fire, when it's mismanaged, misutilized, or worse, because we're such high performers, we may not even be aware it's occurring, has the potential to be catastrophic and disastrous. So imagine if stress is like fire, then burnout is like a house fire. And if you're in a house fire, you tend to call the fire brigade, right? And imagine calling a fire brigade and their response to you is, we're really sorry we can't make it, but could you please just breathe in and breathe out? Ridiculous, right? So when we're thinking about the topic of burnout, we have to realize that if stress is like fire and burnout's like a house fire, we need to learn how to start putting out those fires in our life. And those fires are the unnecessary stress. Unnecessary stress is any form of stress that doesn't take you closer to your goals in work or the type of lifestyle you want to have in your personal world. All of those things need to be eliminated. Secondly, what we hear a lot when it comes to burnout is to be resilient. Anyone heard that? Resilience is the answer to preventing burnout? And Alejandra said no. And that's absolutely correct. It is the worst thing you can do. And part of that is a couple of reasons. So number one, resilience is like the story of the frog in tepid water, right? Resilient people, just like the frog, are really good at acclimatizing and adjusting to harmful situations, hot water, the fire. Problem with that, the higher tolerance you have to the harmful situation, the stressful situations, those fires, the more likely you are to be burnt. So in the story, the frog gets boiled alive. Us as humans, we end up burning out. So resilience is not the answer to preventing burnout. And if some of you aren't convinced, I think now's a good time to tell you my story. Ta-da! Story time. I was in my final year of university, studying economics, and I received a call from my younger sister in London to let me know that my mum had just had a heart attack. Sounds cliche, but my mum was my best friend, and my world fell apart underneath me. I looked at my best friend and I said to her, if I have to go through this, I'm going to grow through this. There needs to be a rainbow at the end of this storm. So I travelled back to London to be with my family, at which point my mum, they had successfully resuscitated her, but they had put her in a medically induced coma, and there was nothing I could do about it. I had a choice to make. Do I stay at home with my family in an incredibly helpless situation where I can't do anything to help the medics, I can't improve my mum's situation, and quite frankly, there'd be nothing for me to do? Or do I decide to go back to university and complete my economics degree? I'm a bit of a stress addict. I'm the type of person that when life is falling apart, I throw myself into whatever I feel like I can control. And at that point, that was my degree. So I went back to university and I completed my economics degree. I wrote a 10,000 word, first class, socio-econometric dissertation in 48 hours, handed in 1 minute before the deadline, with my mum in a coma. Resilient, right? Anyone agree? By the time I graduated, I knew I wasn't ready for a real job. My mum was severely neurologically disabled, paraplegic and blind, and I was just trying to survive. So I threw myself into waitressing. I worked double shifts, I worked triple shifts, anything to distract me from the fact my life was falling apart. And I also worked at the Fair Trade Foundation in research and policy to keep the career prospects open. Thought I wanted to be an economist. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. That summer, I woke on my 23rd birthday thinking, right, I am going out with the girls tonight, tequila shots, parties, it's gonna be great. Instead, I found out that sepsis had cancelled my plans. I was admitted into hospital the day of my birthday, fighting off sepsis, and spent 7 days fighting for my life. When I was discharged, the doctor was very clear. You are not to do anything strenuous, Subira. Well, Subira had a holiday booked to Greece with her family. And that holiday was set in the mountains. So that kind of wasn't my fault, right? But life happens. However, whilst I was on holiday, I had my eye fixed on this huge, inflatable, open sea obstacle course. It got to the penultimate day of my holiday, which coincided with the 7th day of being discharged. So technically I had followed the doctor's instructions, right? And I swam out, climbed onto this huge inflatable obstacle course, competed against a man and won. 7 days after defeating death, I beat a man on a water obstacle course. By the next summer, having continued with the waitressing, having continued volunteering at the Fair Trade Foundation, my uncles had enough and went, Subira, when are you going to put that good degree to some use? I'm just trying to survive. So I said, okay, I'll do something about this. I sent my CV out into the world, and a top 2 investment consultancy firm invited me in for an interview. Yay. I'm about to be an adult with a real job. So I accepted the interview on one condition. I'm going to Mexico City. Can I do it when I get back? They agreed, and off I ran to Mexico City to stave off adulthood just a little bit longer. Came back jet lagged, did the interview jet lagged. They surprised me with a mental math question that was not on the job description. I did it jet lagged, and they offered me the job. Yay, adulthood. 2 weeks before I was due to start this job, the day after my 24th birthday, my mum suddenly, but peacefully, passed away. I found myself having to make a decision. Do I defer my start date, because after all, my mum's just died? I think that's a pretty good reason, right? Or do I go ahead and just start my job anyway? I chose the latter. I called up my soon-to-be employers and said, hi, I know I'm due to start on this date, but do you mind if I take off the week after, just one day in the week? And they said, sure, is everything okay? I said, yeah, I just want to go to my mum's funeral. They said, Subira, don't be silly. Take compassionate leave. I said, don't be silly. I haven't earned compassionate leave. So we came to a compromise. I buried my mum on a Thursday, and I started my first investment job the following Monday. Resilient, right? 9 months into my new career with a new income, I had created this perfect work-life balance. I went to the gym 6 times a week, sometimes twice a day. I was predominantly plant-based. It was 2017, so it was all the rage. Like a good millennial, I meditated religiously. And when the reporting season was over, I was on a 5-star all-inclusive resort with the girls. Work-life balance. Until, as I said, 9 months later, I went to bed with the flu, and the next morning I woke up and I couldn't feel anything below my hips. Bit odd, right? Lost my ability to walk. But I didn't lose my ability to write reports. So I carried on working, but from home. Within a few weeks, I then started getting really intense migraines. I've never had headaches before, so the migraines were completely mind-boggling to me. And now I was forced to take time off work. So I took about 5 days off work, because any longer than that, I was scared my colleagues were going to think I was faking it, I was skiving, and the paranoia got the best of me. So I got back up Friday morning, ready to go to work, stood in front of the mirror to do my makeup, and I closed my left eye and realized I couldn't see anything out of my right eye. I had a holiday booked the week after. This was not okay. So I went to the doctors, Moorfields Eye Hospital, A&E. I needed to know if the blindness was due to pressure, because if it was due to pressure, I wasn't safe to fly. If it wasn't pressure, I was going on holiday. I spent 4 hours in investigations at the hospital, and the consultant came over to me and said, Subira, I think we need to write a letter to the insurance company. We need to postpone your holiday. I said, Doc, is the blindness due to pressure? She said, no, but I said, we'll deal with this when I get back. So off I was the next morning, Gatwick Airport in a wheelchair, and I had the best holiday of my life. I even tried surfing out there with one eye and little mobility in my lower body. It was great. Came back from holiday. Investigations continued. The paranoia grew. And so I decided that the best thing to do was get a new job, right? Because my colleagues are going to see that maybe my performance is starting to slip, and that's not okay. So I left investment consultancy and went over to asset management. Brand new job, brand new pay packet, found my solution, right? Not quite. 3 months into my new job, during my probation period, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. After a whole year of sporadic immobility, sporadic blindness, I had been diagnosed with something that, if we're honest, medical professionals don't truly understand what causes it or what cures it. The world of uncertainty that I'd already been living had just been amplified tenfold. So what was I to do? I'd been resilient, right? And then it occurred to me, resilience is not what I need. I have that in bucket loads. After all, I had been that frog and I was being boiled alive. I needed something different. And it made me realize that actually, what I needed to be was tenacious. Now, some of you may be thinking, surely that's just semantics. Resilience, tenacity, people use them interchangeably all the time. But there's a difference. Going back to our lemon analogy. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Resilient people are really good at making lemonade. They can make enough lemonade to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool and carry on swimming. But tenacity says, when life gives you a lemon, 3 things. Number 1, what else can I make with this lemon? Number 2, do I even like lemonade? And number 3, is it worth the squeeze? I realized that I needed to stop looking at life of, being resilient and using it as a badge of honor, because that was no way of living. I decided I needed to create a solution for myself that would enable me to have sustainable success instead of living in this burnout cycle of burnout, treat, repeat. Here's what I did. I redefined MS from multiple sclerosis to multiple stress, because I realized that every time I had a stressful event in my life, immediately after, I'd have an MS relapse of immobility or blindness. And if I could dismantle the minds that were the stressful situations in my life, could I get my health back? Spoiler alert, yeah. I have been symptom-free of MS for 4 years next month without any medical intervention. I still very much have MS, let me make that clear. But I no longer live a life of disabling relapses. So when it comes to navigating and managing uncertainty, we have to let go of this idea that we need to be resilient and instead become tenacious. And tenacity requires us to ask ourselves, what is it we actually value in life? Both personally and professionally. I am someone that believes that your life is created of your lifestyle and your career. If you try and split it into work-life balance, you're forever going to be teetering on the edge of both of them. Instead, we need to figure out what that work-life integration looks like. Once we start asking ourselves what we actually value both in work and in life, and create a lifestyle around that is cohesive, that's the word I wanted, things start to become transformative. So as I said, I redefined MS from multiple sclerosis to multiple stress. And I started identifying the stresses that needed to be eliminated. First one, I had £8,500 worth of consumer debt, because I thought retail therapy was easier than actual therapy. It is, just don't do it. So I paid off £7,500 in 5 months so I can have the flexibility to decide what I wanted to do next, which was step away from my job. My health was at an all-time low. Once I did that, I retrained as a certified holistic health practitioner. I really wanted to understand that relationship between stress, the immune system, performance, and how I could start creating the new life that I wanted. And then lastly, I decided, as I said, what type of life did I actually want to live? What were my values? Because I'm a big believer that if there's no purpose, then there's no purpose. If you don't put purpose behind the work that you do, the way in which you do the work and why you want to do that work, if you don't put purpose behind the type of life you want to live and how you want to live that life, you're going to end up in that cycle of burnout, repeat, burnout, treat, repeat. And that's what I found with having the perfect work-life balance. All it did was mask the fact that I was in that cycle and kick the can down the inevitable road that was burnout. So I use a lot of analogies, and I'm trying not to use too many because otherwise we'll all be painting pictures. When it comes to life, I really need you to understand that it's the lemons that life will give you. That's one thing that's guaranteed, but what we can do is take back our personal power. And our personal power is deciding which lemons are worth the squeeze, which lemons can we leave alone, and which ones will actually help us get to the goals that we want in life. Lemonade is not always the answer. Resilience is particularly not the answer, particularly for this stream of people here, because resilience is not an inclusive approach. If you have protected characteristics, you tend to meet more resistance than your counterparts. The more resistance you meet, the more resilient you have to be because it's a natural antidote. The more resilient you are, the more susceptible you are to burning out. So life will give us lemons. And there's nothing wrong with that, because with those lemons, we have the opportunity to make whatever we want from it. So I went from being a burnt out, anxiously depressed, disabled with MS investment analyst to now working with global brands to help their people create sustainable high performance teams. Life definitely handed me a lemon in the form of multiple sclerosis. And lemonade for me could have been going, right, let me stay as an investment analyst and let me keep, getting sick and stay in the cycle. But instead I decided that there has to be more to life because I found out what my values were. Sorry, I'm also recovering from a cold. I could really feel it coming back. Forgive me, we're here. I'm still awake. So the takeaway from this, to sum it up, is please don't look at resilience as a badge of honor. Resilience is a short-term strategy, not a long-term solution. Example being here not being 100% well is very much a short-term thing. I'll be resilient for this hour because I know I can recover thereafter. Number 2, life is going to give us lemons. We live in a world of uncertainty, but with that comes the opportunity to create what we want from it. With lemons, you can make cake, which I'm really looking forward to after. With lemons, you can make, cosmetics, you can make confectionery things. It doesn't always have to be lemonade. So the next time life presents you with a lemon, ask yourself, number 1, is it worth the squeeze? Is it worth putting your energy behind it? Is it worth getting upset about it? Is it worth working on it? And number 2, what else can you do with that opportunity? Sometimes an opportunity happens in the way that you don't quite expect, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of the road. And number 3, in order to break the cycle of burnout, treat, repeat, start identifying those fires in your life and putting them out. Because if it's an unnecessary stress, it's eating away at your cognitive capacity to deal with the stress that do arise, mostly in work, when we actually need them to excel and cross that finish line. I can feel my own energy draining, so I'll practice what I preach and say thank you very much for listening, and I'm open to any questions.